Morning, everyone. This is Councilman Michael Holmes, Chair of the Transparency, Engagement, and Communication Committee, calling to order our first meeting of the new year. Happy New Year, everyone. With me in chambers today is Mayor Pro Tem Britt Moore, Councilman Dr. Patrick Harmon, and with us virtually, Councilwoman Amanda Cook. We have a few items on our agenda this morning, and we will begin with item 2025-026, Resilience High Point Compassion presentation, and Damon Duquesne, Assistant City Manager, will lead us off.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the committee. Damon Duquesne, Assistant City Manager. The committee will receive a presentation regarding Resilience High Point's Compassion Charter, delivered by Ms. Charlene Gladney.
Good morning. Thank you, guys. Is it up?
Yep.
Okay.
The presentation. Is there? Oh, there it is.
Okay. Okay, so Resilience High Point was formed in 2019 to begin addressing ACEs, or Adverse Childhood Experiences and Trauma. We see High Point as a city where people flourish and embrace opportunities to continuously improve the community. The strategies that we use include trainings, convenings, the bridge, and the compassion effort. This is Rene Robert. He's a Swiss photographer. A couple of years ago, he fell on a Paris street on a cold, cold January day. Hundreds of people walked past him over a 9-hour period. We don't know what they thought. We don't know if they thought he was homeless or he was drunk or maybe they thought he was asleep, but he ended up dying of hypothermia. And it was actually a homeless person that checked on him to see if he was okay, but he wasn't. Rene Robert particularly loved photographing flamingo dancers. That's what he was well known for, but that didn't really matter on the day that he was lying on that cold sidewalk for 9 hours. No one bothered to ask what was going on and if he was okay, and he ended up dying of hypothermia. There are certainly folks, perhaps many, who walked past Mr. Robert and thought how sad it was that this man was sleeping or passed out on the sidewalk, but they didn't act. That's why we started this compassion effort, because it takes action to make impact, not just empathy. Researchers have found that doctors who take 40 seconds to be present and to connect with their patients see that their patients divulge more information, they adhere to their treatment plans better, and they have better outcomes. 40 seconds. Who doesn't have 40 seconds? Compassion is reciprocal. It builds on itself. Imagine a city where everyone is compassionate. In Trust First, and this was a book that the entire Resilience High Point board read, but in Trust First, Bruce Deal tells the story about the City of Refuge. This organization is rooted in the principles of radical trust. It's based in an Atlanta neighborhood known as The Bluff. Better leave, you effing fool. They are a one-stop shop for bringing people out of homelessness through transitional housing, on-site medical and mental health care, child care, and vocational training. Bruce believes the best way to empower marginalized and impoverished people is to extend trust, even if that trust is broken or violated multiple times. The City of Refuge has helped over 20,000 of Atlanta's people in the roughest neighborhood, exit homelessness, joblessness, and drug abuse. We launched the Compassion effort with the Compassion Charter, and we are thrilled that the city is interested in signing the charter and becoming a part of the Compassion movement. The charter is a statement of intent. It is a commitment to get involved in the community, learn about your neighbors, unlearn some of the things you thought you know about your neighbors, and learn how you can be a positive influence in addressing community issues. We believe in the power of inspiration and conversation. We believe in building community. The charter asks us to learn about our neighbors, particularly those in the margins. The seen and heard events allow us to listen and learn from our neighbors. We believe that compassion can be learned and nurtured. The types of trainings that we produce allow us to become better people and better neighbors. Communication tools allow us to share opportunities for practicing compassion, learning about ourselves and others, and be inspired by the work of others. So if you have any questions, you can ask them now, and I have members here that will help answer them.
Excellent. We'll now open it up for our committee. Is Councilwoman Cook on? Did we confirm that she can hear us? Amanda, if you're there, speak now, forever hold your peace. Well, while we're making sure that Councilwoman Cook is able to participate, we have any questions from the members of the Tech Committee? Patrick, I know this is, you were part of this. If you want to add any additional context.
Yeah, I mean, from the beginning, full disclosure, I'm on the board of Resilience High Point, and I did speak to the city attorney about any potential conflicts, which there aren't any because this doesn't involve funding. But yeah, I mean, the Compassion effort was something that we got inspired by another city in England, actually, that sort of dug into the research about the impacts of compassion and what a big difference it makes, particularly in the health field. And our board got very excited about compassion, and we've been working for the last few years to make High Point the most compassionate city with a variety of strategies. And I'm glad the council is interested in looking at it a bit further. Because it's easy to be cynical in today's age, right? And that sort of colors your view of everything. And it's all negative, right? But versus if you take a positive view that most people are kind and are doing their best, then that impacts how you behave and how you perceive the world. And so you get a positive role instead of a negative role. No doom scrolling, hope scrolling.
That's excellent. And so in terms of kind of the structure and the rollout of this, I saw that there was some trainings involved in a series of listen and learns. How would we participate in that? Would that be opportunities for members of the city, council members to go through some of these trainings? Is that the expectation once, if the city is to look at the adoption of the charter?
Yes. So once you sign the charter and you read through the charter, it's a commitment to really conduct business in a compassionate manner. And yes, we would love the city to participate in the trainings and the convenings. None of what we offer has any cost associated with it, so they would be welcome to attend. Screenings like the screenings of the antidote, it gives you another viewpoint of some of the issues and some of the solutions. So.
Yeah, I think anytime that you have charters like that, sometimes folks think that it locks you into a certain way of operating. And so just wanted to be clear that, what are the expectations that would be on the city in participating? Would there be, requirements and demands of the city and staff if this is adopted by the city, eventually adopted by the city?
The commitment is just to try to be more to be compassionate. I don't have the charter in front of me, but really it's a commitment to try to look at your dealings with that lens of compassion.
Sure. Thank you. Have we got Councilwoman Cook on the line? Amanda?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we got you.
Okay, great.
Do you have any questions or comments that you would like to provide?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you for this presentation, and I definitely appreciate how quick we were able to get this into our agenda and to put it out there. So hopefully the public will see this as one of our first steps towards a new High Point that is more connected and more compassionate.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, I know that we had some new council members come on who maybe are not familiar with the Compassion Charter. And I spoke to Patrick prior to the meeting here. I think it would be appropriate if we, Madam Manager, I know you're here, or Damon, maybe it would be appropriate if we could maybe get a further presentation to the other members of council on the charter before we made any decisions. Yes, sir. If we could get that potentially scheduled to, and maybe a manager's briefing or something, that we could get this presented to full members of council who may be unfamiliar. All right? Okay. All right, well, thank you for your presentation. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right. Second item up today is 2025-027, a revised broadcast policy, and we're going to have Jerron Hollis, Managing Director, presenting.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Jerron Hollis, Managing Director. What you have in front of you is the revision to your current broadcast policy. In April of '24, the council approved the installation of the equipment and software to enable streaming. And the updated policy is the last step, so to speak, that would allow the meetings to be streamed in real time across our platforms, our existing platforms. So what we are looking for here is to have the committee approve this and then it be heard by the full council at the next council meeting. Be glad to entertain any questions you might have.
Do you have any questions about our policy?
So Jerron, if we adopt this policy, then we can go start with the video streaming. Is that kind of the plan? Or are you still trying to hire somebody to do that sort of thing?
That's a great question. We have staffing in place. This is the final administrative step that really brings everything together, and in conjunction with the manager and the attorney that have helped us kind of work this out. This is that last step. After this, then we'd have a brief period between the approval and just getting things up to speed, practice, taking in some of the information so that hopefully we'd be able to start broadcasting by that second March council meeting. So this is the last administrative step to get us there.
In terms of notifying the public about our intent to stream, what is the plan for the rollout launch, kind of pre-notification of how folks can tune in?
Well, a number of ways. Once we had final approval by council, then I would imagine there would be some media interest. We'd have that out to the public, and then using our standard platforms of information, social, word of mouth. This doesn't change how we do the meetings. It's just making the meetings more accessible in a different way to the public. So that will be a part of our outreach, and that's really what the message will be.
Well, technology advances and new ways to connect, and I feel like this is an old way to connect that is new to us. All right, so I think it's a good advancement. It was something that we heard overwhelmingly from the public, not only in the campaign, but in surveys and a lot of the events, even during the marketing and branding, that folks wanted additional ways to connect, not only to their neighbors, but to their city government. And so I think this is a positive advancement. Thank you. Any other questions for staff? All right, if not, our next item up, 2025-028.
Mayor.
We need I'm sorry. I will entertain a motion at this time to accept the policy.
So moved.
There's a motion, Councilman Harmon, is there a second? Second. Second by Mayor Pro Tem Moore. Any discussion on the item? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. All right, thank you. Item 2025-028, we have an overview of our boards and commissions, and we will have our city attorney and city clerk presenting.
Thank you, Councilmember Holmes. We're going to just go through, this will be our first kind of introduction of revisiting and doing an overview of the boards and commissions. So, the PowerPoint? Clicker? I can stand up. Hey. There we go. Okay, so we're going to first just look at the word. I think there's sometimes we conflate all the different board, commission, council committees. And so generally when we're talking about the appointed bodies, it's either a board or a commission. And it really doesn't make a difference between the two. There's some language, whether it's from statute or city ordinance, that calls and names something a board or a commission, but it functions as a body. Similar to council, but it's a different function. Council is the only elected board, obviously, within the city government structure. So you all are the elected officials and the ultimate governing board of the entire city, but we have many appointed boards, as you all know. And it's the role of council to appoint many of those boards. The board, commission, whether either one, whatever it's called, they exist for different reasons. So many of them are creatures of statute, which means that the North Carolina General Statute requires and creates the board or commission and requires that the city operate one. Some of them are creatures of our city code, where it's something that was designated in our code that it was incumbent upon the city to create. One example of a creature of statute is that we have the planning board. So in the North Carolina General Statutes, they generally call it a planning board, but give the discretion to the actual name, but it gives you the guardrails of how it needs to be created and how it functions. Here we have the Planning and Zoning Commission. Other ones like the Historic Preservation Commission comes from statute. The Human Relations Commission comes from our city code. So some of them are created in different places, and then others are just discretionary. And it's something that perhaps council creates either by a resolution or in the city code for a specific reason or purpose. And it can just be discretionary. It's not necessarily required by state law or required by our city code. So it's many of these appointed boards and commissions. Some of them have bylaws. Some of them could have a rules of procedure. As you all know, City Council has their own rules of procedure. And in those documents, it would cover things like appointments, terms, rules of procedure, like parliamentary law, how you do votes, how you do motions, things like that. And it kind of just governs how the actual board operates and how the meetings operate. So there's 3 different types of boards within these appointed boards and commissions. There is a legislative board, and a legislative board is the only one that under the appointed category is the Planning and Zoning Commission. So a legislative board holds public hearings and has the ability to make decisions and make recommendations to council, but ultimately our Planning and Zoning Board has delegated authority to council to make some final decisions as well. In a legislative board, the board members can consider the matters before them and make a decision really for any reason that they wish, so long as it does not violate law. So for example, so long as it doesn't discriminate on the basis of a protected class. But if you make a decision because you don't like the color blue, then that's okay. That's within the legislative discretion of that board to make those decisions. And like I said, our only legislative board is the Planning and Zoning Commission. A quasi-judicial board is one that hears quasi-judicial matters and acts really like a court. And so you all have been familiar with those recently with the special use permits when the city council functions that way, but the two appointed boards and commissions that we have that function that way are the Board of Adjustment and the Historic Preservation Board. And it binds the city. You are under, those board members are under very specific rules of procedure on what they can consider for evidence, what they can rely on to make their decisions, and the decisions bind the city. An advisory board is really all of the other boards that exist, the appointed boards and commissions that exist. They are only purely advisory in nature. They don't bind the city, they don't make final decisions, but they certainly consider a lot of different matters and they make recommendations to both staff and the city council. And just a note here, be careful not to confuse appointed boards and commissions with standing committees of council, which is like you all are here today. Committees are made up only of council members. We have some temporary or time-limited committees, subcommittees, and task forces. One example was our marketing and branding task force. Generally, a task force will be limited in time. It will have a specific task in front of it to address, and then once it completes its task, then it no longer continues to meet and go on. And certainly, there are council liaison roles to both some of these appointed boards and commissions and outside organizations boards, but that's just where council is purely that, a liaison to those entities, and you would not be voting you would not be a voting or participating member of those boards. The next slide I kind of already hit on, but just to see it clearly, the legislative board at the city is only the Planning and Zoning Commission, quasi-judicial is Historic Preservation and Board of Adjustment, and the advisory boards are generally all of the other boards that the clerk keeps a list of those and handles the administrative side of it. So I'll pass it over to Sandra to kind of go through the boards and commission. And these are, all of these ones we're talking about are the advisory boards in nature.
So we just wanted to provide you guys, I'm Sandra Keeney, the city clerk. We just wanted to provide you guys a list of the boards so you can see it, that these are some of the advisory boards here. And these are some boards that you guys make appointments to. Just to highlight is the High Point Housing Authority, the Guilford County Historic Preservation Commission, and some of the other ones there listed. Some of these advisory boards are ward-specific. Here's a list of some of those that are ward-specific for your ward. At-large members, of course, can designate throughout the city. And here's just a breakdown of some of the past policies that we've had. You can go outside the ward for appointment, but residency requirements, and you're encouraged to make those appointments according to residency and primary occupation with a preference given to residency. However, sometimes we know that we don't receive applications for your wards. Sometimes there are extenuating circumstances. So if a person is working in your ward and doing the work, then you guys have the opportunity to appoint that person. There's some term limits, but those term limits, they do not apply to P&Z, Board of Adjustment, and the HPC. To you, the clerk's office provides vacancy reports, rosters. These are located on your OneDrive. These are updated. This is a running list. So as we get applications in, we save those to your OneDrive so you can see. If there's one particular that, we know that you've been looking for, you've received emails, hey, just so you know, this person has submitted an application, and we can move forward with that recommendation. Again, you guys know that you help facilitate these appointments. These are your appointments, okay? Here's an example of that vacancy report, just a list of the board, the council member responsible, the expiration date of that. You guys have seen this before. Anybody that is interested in applying, you can contact me. My information is at the end of this presentation. You can go online. The application is online for anybody to complete. If you have trouble, please, reach out to the clerk's office. We'll be happy to help with that. We also report for the statutory created boards. We have a report that we submit to the state every year by September. It's just a gender equity report. We just report that. It just lets them know what the City of High Point's gender equity is for some of these boards.
Sandra, can you go back to that slide?
Sure.
This is Councilman Moore. How long has that statute been in effect, the 143, 157?
I know that's been a while. I don't know the exact date.
I'll look quickly and I'll let you know just.
Yeah. Some of the next steps, Megan and I, we've started a conversation to try to help standardize these boards and commissions, right? And so some of the next steps that we thought we would present to you guys would be, first of all, the clerk's office, in conjunction with the attorney's office, would start visiting the boards and commissions to see how they function, make sure, that we have their updated bylaws, and just generally see, right? Generally be involved and generally see how they operate. Be there to help and guide if necessary. So that's one of the things that we're looking at. And like I said, gather and review the bylaws is another to make sure, we have an understanding of how each board operates. Also, virtual meeting options. So one of the things that I learned, a highlight from COVID, was that with our boards and commissions, having the virtual option, attendance exploded. Like, we had great attendance with our boards and commissions because they did have that virtual option. Megan and I have discussed it, and she's going to help us look in and research if that's a possible option maybe for our boards and commissions and what that may look like. It certainly, I don't think, would be an option for like P&Z, BOA, but those advisory boards, just kind of research that and see what that would look like. Some boards may decline. Some boards may appreciate the ability to have their meetings virtual.
Madam Clerk, I know that there were allowances during the pandemic for this. Were they rolled back? The allowances, they were rolled back. They were by the General Assembly?
So the authority that the municipalities had for virtual meetings, for the most part, is when a state emergency is declared. So it was very clear that during the time of a state of emergency that we had authority to hold remote meetings. We do for city council specifically in our governing boards and the legislative and quasi-judicial boards, there's no authority for during a time of normal operation to hold things virtually. There's no clear authority. So it is a gray area of the law right now. And that's something that we'll look at, I think, for advisory boards. And since their advisory in nature function is so different than a governing or legislative board or even a quasi-judicial board, which binds the city, I think there's perhaps opportunity to consider that, but only for the advisory ones. So we're going to do a deeper dive.
So if the governor declared a state of emergency for the state, hypothetically, that would cover us if we decided that we needed to operate virtually?
Yes.
Okay.
There's more authority, and it certainly would be appropriate during that time to do it. And so there is certainly a lot of discussion around this for the reason that our clerk mentioned, because a lot of people got used to it and appreciated the flexibility. And I think if you think about kind of the different roles of these boards, when something's advisory in nature, then there's really it is important for the entire board and the body to be together and discuss, but it is not binding the city, and it's not making legislative or quasi-judicial decisions that affect the city going forward as much. So I think that's why there's more opportunity there for just the advisory ones, because just think about how they operate in general. They're just making, not just, but they're making recommendations to another body. So the need for them to be face-to-face and interacting perhaps is less.
Another one of the recommendations is to work with staff to provide operational recommendations if we see that there is deficiencies and there is, moments or time for improvement, to bring some of those recommendations back to this committee for you to review and approve. Again, this is our contact information. Just want to emphasize to the citizens that if they have an interest to serve on one of our board and commissions, to reach out to the clerk's office. Let us know. If they have questions, we'll put them in contact with that liaison, that staff liaison for that board, so they can better answer the questions on how that, when and where that board operates, and just really want to emphasize the need for our citizens to serve, and would be happy to assist with that in any way we can.
Who's Handsome Pup?
I just thought he was cute.
Must belong to a dentist.
Yes.
Just to answer
Attorney.
Mayor Pro Tem's question, that statute was first enacted in 1999. So it's been amended a few times since then, but the requirement for the gender equity report was first 1999.
Does it have parameters that we have to meet? I mean, can we fall out of compliance with that statute and be reprimanded in some form?
At this point, I believe it's a reporting requirement.
I got it. But
So that's a way of saying, no, I don't think that they could actually, there's no hard requirements other than to share the data.
okay.
Thank you. Good question. Do we have any other questions for our city attorney or city clerk, or any other comments? Councilwoman Cook, do you have any comments or questions?
Are those applications good for?
So we keep applications on file for 2 years. We have not purged, of course, 2023s yet, just because we've just begun this year. But usually we keep them on file for 2 years.
Thank you. And thank you all for this presentation.
Excellent, excellent.
So is there some kind of promotional thing about the different types of service opportunities for folks? To get, because I know sometimes there's a struggle to fill some of these slots, but people may not know about them. Is there been an effort to sort of say, hey, serve your city by these multiple opportunities? Or
We can look into that. I don't know that there's an active campaign we've had specifically in my time here, but it's been more word of mouth and really committee, board or commission specific. But that's definitely something that is we can look into.
Yeah, thanks.
As a follow-up to that, do we see any lack of applicants? I don't remember in my years noticing that when we went to fill something, either as our responsibility to get someone or reviewing the
Right.
3, 8, 15 applications that are in, that had
Right.
been a
So
challenge.
if, when you review the applications, you will certainly see that there's more boards that receive applications than others. And so certain boards, I think, does have a lack of applications.
Okay. Good question.
Madam Attorney, thinking about some of the language, a board, because that has implications that you have authority and responsibilities if you're a board versus a commission. Is there any thought to kind of cleaning up some of the language, like the library board of trustees is not really, it's the library advisory committee? I mean, because there's a couple of examples where it says board, but it's an advisory.
Right, so I think that that's kind of connotation that we all think from those words, but some of the name, like for example, the Library Board of Trustees comes straight from the statute. And so some of them we have discretion on. Like I said, they generally, under 160D, call it the planning board. But sometimes you'll hear a zoning board, a planning and zoning commission, a planning and zoning board. You know, that some of it's interchangeable. But there's some that specifically come from statute. Library Board of Trustees is one. And so there's no legal difference between a board or a commission. I think it's just sometimes the way that we think about them. But they're all bodies that convene and kind of make recommendations and consider matters. So there's really no real legal implication of a difference between a board or a commission.
Right, it's just, I guess, in the vernacular, right?
Yes,
On
exactly.
the board,
That's
then
right.
you got some authority, right? Okay.
Any other comments or questions for our city attorney or city clerk? Well, if not, we greatly appreciate this presentation. Our goal has always been to inspire or certainly encourage our public to participate in service. And so boards and commissions are a great way. I know I got my start here in the city of High Point by participating on the Citizens Advisory Council. And I know many of other council members did as well. And so it's a great introduction into public service. And I think to your point, Patrick, we should do more to encourage folks to apply to be part of our boards and commissions. So if there's nothing else to come before the Tech Committee, we are adjourned.